Have you ever felt like you got the bad end of the deal? That you were blamed for something you didn't do and all of your friends despised you? Well, then you could probably relate to Germany after World War I. So the end of World War I is the Treaty of Versailles, because when any war happens, obviously we get together at Versailles Palace in France and work it out. Mainly because it's just a big space, we can fit everybody. And so we have three big leaders meeting at the Treaty of Versailles. From France, we have Georges Clemenceau. From Great Britain, we have David Lloyd George. And from the United States, we have Woodrow Wilson. Now, even though Wilson came to this late, because the United States didn't get involved until later, Wilson kind of outlines his plan for peace and becomes one of the main leaders. And his plan is known as the 14 points. Now, you don't need to know all 14 of these 14 points, but you need to know two. Self-determination and the League of Nations. So self-determination is basically the right of a people to govern themselves. And so remember this nationalistic movement that was one of our causes of World War I? This supports that. And that these small areas, especially areas under the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, which will collapse, now can rule themselves, can have strong countries. So we see Poland, which was divided up in, period 4 under Catherine the Great, now becomes a country again. We see Czechoslovakia arrive. We see a lot of small nations in Eastern Europe arise out of, this result of self-determination and the decline of our big empires. Self-determination, however, only applies to Europe. A lot of Asian and African representatives are going to come and plead for self-determination to get the Europeans out. They say no. Yeah, and the second thing you need to know is about the League of Nations, which is basically Wilson's idea of a peacekeeping organization where all the countries come together and solve their problems without fighting. Well, this is going to fail for a number of reasons. One is they really can't do anything. When Hitler does what he does before World War II, invades Czechoslovakia, whatnot, they basically just give him a slap on the wrist and say, don't do it again. So they really have no power. And then the United States doesn't end up becoming part of the world. And the United States doesn't become part of the League of Nations. In the United States, the Senate has to ratify all foreign treaties. Well, Wilson goes back, pleads with the Senate, ends up having a stroke, and isn't able to, campaign for it. And so the United States become isolationist and are not a part of the League of Nations. So Germany is blamed for the war, even though, technically Austria kind of started, or Russia, or Serbia. Germany did not start World War I, but they are forced to take the blame for it. And so there's a number of things that they have to do. One is the guilt clause, where they basically have to say, we started the war. Another is they have to pay off all debts, not only their own, but all of the winners. And there's no way they can pay that off, because they don't have good industry. A lot of things have been destroyed in the war. France is going to, occupy their economic sector. They're not going to be able to pay this back. And this is going to cause, economic problems in Germany and a lot of frustration by the German citizens. They also lose land, and they have to decrease the size of their military. Remember, they're a militaristic state, so this hits home. This is, a hard hit for them. And they can't defend themselves. Germany and France are kind of always afraid of each other, that one will invade the other. Well, now France has the upper hand, and that frightens Germany. So again, Germany has to take all the blame, has to do all of this, even though they really didn't start the war, and so this is going to fuel the fire that Hitler is going to take advantage of. With the Treaty of Versailles, we see the breakup of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire. So we have modern-day Austria and then Hungary as two separate nations. And then Turkey will come as a result of, the end of the Ottoman Empire. And so areas left over are for those small nationalistic groups to become their own country. So I want to talk to you about, culture after World War I. There wasn't really a good place to put this other than the end of this video. So we have a couple different movements going along. We have the Roaring Twenties, where, people are kind of like YOLO. Yes. Yeah, sorry. It's an old reference, but hopefully you get it. We also see the Cubist movement come about, Pablo Picasso. And we see the emergence of all of these writers that talk about how disenfranchised they are with the war. You know, war was once this glorious thing, but World War I showed us it really isn't. And so they write about how terrible war is and how sad they are as a result of this war. And we're going to see that kind of be the attitude, which is why, you know, nations try to avoid war at all costs when it came to World War II. Okay, that's all I have for you on the end of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles. I'll see you next time.